Hey guys, welcome again to another episode of When the Scriptures Become Real. It's kind of podcast where we learn, where we study, where we grow, where we try to become the best versions of ourselves as we can, as we continue to serve our Lord. Again, you guys find the podcast on YouTube or anywhere else you can get your podcast. We're just so thankful you guys are here, that you found us, and that you guys are with us today. All right, guys, I'm telling you guys, I was so excited to record this. I wanted to record this like Friday or Saturday, but I was like, you know what, JP, let me chill. Let's wait till Monday. Everybody's waiting for it on Monday, so we'll just do it on Monday. So Monday's finally here, and we can study this, and I'm so excited to go through this with you guys as we study this. So thank you guys again for your encouragement, for your downloads and listening and sharing and commenting and just making this a group study. That's what you're going to find here. All right. If you're new to the podcast here, that's what this is, right? You study and we talk together and we message back and forth, Zoom calls. It's absolutely incredible. So I just want to thank you guys for being a part of what we're doing. Okay. So like I say for everyone, as we start each podcast on this series that we're doing on Esther, go back and listen to the other three, right? Make sure you listen to those because that's your foundation. We're not going anywhere, right? For part 4, we'll be here, but make sure you listen to those other ones so you understand what's going on as we dive back into the text, okay? Now, before we move on, I want to give a quick disclaimer like I gave for the last one. So I said at the end of part 3 that this one in chapter 3, it's going to be a lot through Mordecai's eyes. We're going to take a pause from Esther's eyes and look at things from how Mordecai is seeing them. Okay. So I think that's going to be a very, very important aspect of this. Now, here's a disclaimer. Just because this is going to be Mordecai heavy, what can happen is our ladies can be like, well, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to wait till we talk more about Esther. This is just more for the guys. And then for the women, I'll wait till Esther shows up. Ladies, I believe that there actually might be more here for you than it is for the guys that it's intended for. Right? I think there's actually more here for you, right? And the same from the guy's perspective, right? We have to lock in. And just because the book is Esther doesn't mean that there's not a lot for us here. There's so much. It's ridiculous how much stuff is in here for us as guys, but we can miss it. And as we study the Bible together, one way not to study the Bible is just to look at it. Well, the book of Esther, it's predominantly for women in Esther, so there's really nothing in there for us guys. How many times did we reference what men did in chapter 1 and 2? How is that not for us? How's chapter 3 not for us, right? So make sure as we study scripture, don't try to pick and choose which one you think is for you. God's word is for you, okay? So let's not pick and choose here. Okay, so that's the disclaimer. So stick with us. Let's all stay together. And there's a couple questions we want to start this convo with, but let's get ready. Let's dive in. If you're in the gym, if you're walking, if you're conversating with somebody, if you're in a group study, let's get ready to study. I've got my pen, Bible, tablet. I'm ready to go too. So here's where we want to start our convo. And we're going to start with the fellas because I have a question that I believe it needs to be asked and maybe answered. Here's the question. Are you sure that you want to be a good man? Are you sure you want to be a good man? Now, simple question, right? But the question is very complex. Now, if I'm speaking, right, if I'm preaching or if I'm at a camp or if I'm teaching in a Bible class or at a devotional, 9 times out of 10, people, if I ask that question, guys are going to raise their hands for 2 reasons. Number 1, they're going to raise their hand because that's something that they say they want to be. So they're going to raise their hand. And then number 2, some guys are going to raise their hands because of who they are and what they're doing and what they think they are. They believe that they already are good men. So they just raise their hand. So are you sure though? Are you sure this is exactly what you want? Then ladies, here's the question for you. The question for you is along the same lines, but it's worded just a little bit differently. Ladies, are you sure that a good man is actually what you want? Are you sure that a good man is actually what you want? Now, again, naturally, right? You ask that question, what are most ladies going to say? Most Christian ladies, people that are looking for a Christian guy, what are they going to say? Yeah, that's the type of guy I want, right? I want a good Christian guy. I want a guy that loves kids. I want a guy that's this. I want a guy that serves. I want a guy that's what you say you want, right? Whether out loud or whether internally, that's what you say. Right? I want a good guy. Are you sure? Do you want a good guy, or have you fallen in love with the idea of a good man? Because think about, from a good man's perspective, there's certain things that a good man's going to have to do. There's certain places a good man's going to have to go. There's certain things a good man's going to have to say. So, are you sure you want to be attached to that? See, now here's the question, ladies, that you're going to have to ask yourself. When it comes to a Christian guy, do you really want a good guy? Do you really want a good Christian man, or do you want a nice man? Those are two different guys. Who do you want? Who do you want? Have you fallen in love with the idea of one, but essentially you just want this? Yeah, I want a good man. No, you just want a nice guy. I don't think you want a good man. Those are two different guys. Two different guys. Now, as we study this together, our home base verse as we intro this is Psalm chapter 37, verse 23. I actually have this hung up in my office. One of the kids, well, she's not a kid anymore. She's married now, but great girl. And she's painted this for me when I worked with a youth group there in Memphis. Anna Claire, shout out AC. I have it in my office still hung up. Psalm chapter 37, verse 23. The steps of a good man. What are we talking about now? Are you sure? Are you sure, fellas, this is what you want to be? But then, ladies, are you sure this is the type of guy that you actually want? The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. And it continues, verse 24. Though he fall, is a good man perfect? No. Does a good man sin? Yes. Does a good man get angry? Yes. Does a good man fall? Yes, he does. But when he does, he doesn't stay down. He's not utterly cast down. The Lord upholds him with his hand. Now, as we study about Mordecai is going to give us, and I love the natural pause that this study has when you look at things from the dominant, morally bankrupt male view, right? All chapter 1 and most of chapter 2. And then that view switches to an innocent woman's view of Esther, who's trapped in a nation like that. And then chapter 3 switches to another view of a good man. I love the views that scripture gives us. So as we start chapter 3, here's just a little bit of background before we dive in. Now, remember, as we read verses 19 through 23, as we dive into chapter 2. Now, remember, with Mordecai being a good man, this is the first image that we have of him. Now, remember when Mordecai, he told Esther about the plot that those two men wanted with the king, and then those two men were hung on the gallows? Now, you would think, right? You would think if you tell the king, if you tell the queen that their life was in danger, you would expect that because you did the right thing as a good man in a nation that hates you, but you're still choosing to do the right thing, you would think you would be promoted. Or you would think there is some type of reward. You would think there's something, right? But I want you to notice verse 1 of chapter 3. After these things, so what just happened in 19 through 23, after these things, King Ahasuerus promoted who? Haman. So here's the thing, guys. If you want to be a good man, here's a principle that you have to understand. Being a good man doesn't always mean life and things are fair. Being a good man doesn't mean that life and things are going to be fair. I think sometimes we could have this, what's the right word? We can kind of have this utopian mindset that we believe if I'm a good guy to these people, if I'm a good guy here at work, if I'm a good guy at where I play sports, if I'm a good guy to all these people around me, then naturally, if you are good and you do the right things, naturally those good things are just going to happen back to you, because why wouldn't it, right? So sometimes there's a little bit of like and I think innocently, there's this kind of Boy Scout, Superman, right? There's this Boy Scout mindset where it's like, well, things are just going to happen well because I do good things. Men, here's what we have to understand. In order to be a good man, you're going to realize very, 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 very quickly that when you do the right things, it doesn't always necessarily mean the right things are going to be done back to you. But now that's going to be a very important day in your life, because here's why this day is going to be important. You're going to realize at that point in time, how is this possible? How could people do this? How could this world, how is God okay with this? So now you're going to start to ask yourself a bunch of questions. Why would he let this happen? I'm doing what he said. Why is this okay? Why would he? So now you're going to go down this wormhole of trying to understand. And in your mind as a guy, what you're going to try to do, you're trying to balance the scales and you're trying to make things fair. And guys, it's never going to work. The scales will always be unbalanced. Why? Because evil is in this world. Evil is in this world. Now, thanks be to God, because of his unspeakable gift, Jesus Christ. Did Jesus Christ defeat death? Absolutely. Does Jesus Christ reign? Absolutely. Will Jesus Christ come back? Absolutely. But what still exists? This world is still evil. This world is still evil. Paul mentions in the book of 2 Corinthians that Satan, the little g god of this world, right? Things are still happening. So now you have to understand, as a man, things are going to be unfair. And especially for you Christian guys out here who maybe want to be preachers, who maybe want to be youth workers, who maybe want to really get into service, you have to understand, when you do things and when you serve, things within and things without is going to be unfair for you. You just have to come into things with the mindset that the unfairness is real, regardless of who you are. And I know it seems unfair, right? It seems messed up, doesn't it? Well, I follow Christ. I'm trying to be the man that God wants me to be. I'm trying to be what David said in Psalm chapter 37, Mordecai in Esther chapter 2 and 3. I'm just trying to be this good person. That's great. But where are you? You're still in this world. And unfair things happen. Unfair things happen. Now, as you study this, notice after these things, King Ahasuerus, he promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agathite, and advanced him in his seat above all the princes who were with him. The king's servants who were with the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman. For so the king had commanded concerning him, but Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. The king's servants who were within the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's commandment?" There's so much right here. So after these things, so now Mordecai understands, yeah, this is not good. This is not fair. This is not right. So then who does the king promote? The king promotes Haman, but here's what's interesting. Whenever the Bible says something like Saul, he was a Benjamite, or you have like Haman, right? The Agathite, right? So you the Agagite, right? So you got to understand these last names, or these titles that they had based on the nations that they were a part of, they matter. Now, here's the thing about the Agagites, and this goes all the way back to Saul. Remember when Samuel, and we studied this, right? We studied this in the Jonathan series. Remember when Samuel told Saul that you are to kill everything in Agag? Don't leave anything unturned. Remember what Saul did? Remember, Saul brought back the king, and then Saul let all those people bring back sheep and all these things, and they brought back spoil. And remember when Samuel, when they came back from Agag, what did Samuel say? What is this bleating of sheep that I hear? And then remember what Saul said in his fear as he led? Well, the people made me do it. And then from that moment, the kingdom was rent from Saul. Now, here's what's important about listening to God. If Saul listened to God, this problem wouldn't happen. But now, notice, where is Haman from? The Agagites. Agag. So if everything would have been utterly destroyed, who wouldn't have existed? Haman. But because Saul didn't destroy everything, what's happening still? You have the Agagites and the Israelites still in battle, still hating each other, still animosity. So you see how the historical thing, it always goes back to what someone may or may not have done. Very interesting. So now, As he's promoted, right, Mordecai doesn't bow down to Haman, right? And he doesn't bow down. Now, verse 4. Now, it happened when they spoke to him, but watch what happens. They spoke to him. How many times does your Bible say? Every single day. Hey, how come you're not bowing down? Why are you not doing this? How come you're not bowing down to Haman? Every single day. And he would not listen to them. Now, this goes back to our good man thing, fellas. Ladies, this goes back to this for you too. So, fellas, here's the good man thing. So now it's one thing for you to do good things to people, for you to do good things for those that are around you. And there's like a one-off where it's like, oh, well, I wasn't treated the best, but that's just one person. That's just one. Like it's not a majority. But then what happens as you try to be a good Christian man? That it keeps happening over and over and over and over again. You keep trying to be consistent, and all you're trying to do is be a good man. But it seems like the more that you try to follow God and be a good man, the harder things get for you and the more unfair everything around you seems now. And it happens just like with Mordecai every single day. I want you to test something. Ladies and fellas, I want you to do something. If you have social media, I want you to go on TikTok. I want you to go on Instagram. I want you to go on whatever social media that you have. And in the search bar, even on YouTube, in the search bar, I want you to search up men's mental health or search up men's mental health month, whatever the case might be. Just search up something in that vein. And when you watch the videos of these guys, I guarantee you're going to come to a video with a guy sitting in his car, maybe a bunch of dirt on his face from work, maybe tears coming down his eyes, maybe the tie on his suit completely unloosed, and you could just tell from his eyes and from his tone in the video that he's done. And he'll say something like this in the video: "It's hard out here, man. I try to be a good man. I try to provide for my kids. I love my wife. I love my kids. I try to be there for them. I work this job. I work 2 or 3 other jobs. I'm a good person. But why does it seem like it just gets harder and it gets harder and it gets harder and it gets harder? I can't take it anymore." And then once you get done seeing 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 videos like that, now you understand why the suicide rate as of right now for men is above 50%, because they're coming to the realization that even if you try to be good, and these are men that may not even know Christ, but just men in general, just if I try to be a good guy, things still mess up and it's so unfair. So then guess what a guy says? Well, if I do wrong, right? If I do bad things, I know those bad things have consequences. So that's not the move. But if I keep doing good, things keep getting worse. So now what avenue do I have to go? So then now you have guys that take their life. So this is why I asked, guys, are you sure you want to be a good man? Because what a good man does, here's the difference between a good man and a nice guy. And a Christian could be both. And ladies, I want you to understand, here's the difference. What a good man will do that a nice guy won't, a good man will see that the world may treat him evil. A good man will see that people that love him, other Christians, the world, they may hate him for reasons that he can't control. He will continue to look at things and see how unfair the balance is. He will see how unfair the scales are. And it doesn't matter what he does, it still won't work anyway. A good man, guess what he will do? Just like Mordecai didn't bow down to Haman every single day, a good man every single day will make the choice. Notice, he will make the choice in an unfair, evil world to not sit there and complain about it all day, to not sit here and complain about how bad and how evil things are. He will get up and choose with humility to, number one, look at his God. And he will look to Jesus, Hebrews chapter 12. And even though he knows, if I'm a good man here at the church today, if I'm a good man among brethren, if I'm a good man among the world, and things are just going to be unfair, that man will choose to continue to do the right thing. Guys, do you really want to be that? Because here's the thing. Guys, when you get to a point biblically where you start to see that even though you follow Christ and you do the things he wants you to do, and the things that will be said to you, about you, to you, and you still choose to not let those things make your heart as hard as Pharaoh's was in the book of Exodus. Sometimes what guys get to the point, they get to the point where they feel like they're insane. I can't understand these two things. Think about the prophets. Think about 1 Kings 19. Remember with Elijah? Remember he felt like he was on his own. And then what did he say eventually at the end? Lord, I'm not like my forefathers were. Just take me. I'm done. Just kill me. You see what a good man has to go through? Guys, are you sure you want to be that guy? To constantly make that choice every day? Every day you make that choice. Think about what Moses said, right? As Moses, and we'll go to Moses in a second, but remember what Moses said. God wanted him to go back to Egypt. Moses said, remember at the end, he said, Lord, just please choose someone else. I can't do it. Choose someone else to do this. Think about what Jeremiah said. I believe it's Jeremiah chapter 20. Curse the day that I was born. This is so unfair. You said in chapter 1, remember Jeremiah told God, you deceived me. You told me in Jeremiah chapter 1 that you would be there. You told me not to be afraid of their faces. You told me that you knew me from the womb. You told me all these things you knew about me and what you would do. And I did exactly what you said. I did exactly what you told me to do. But now he says, you know what? Just kill me. Curse the day that I was born on this earth. Because guess what? It's not fair. Guys, the more, as men, the more that you understand that things aren't fair and they will never be fair is the moment that you grow into your manhood. And then you really become a biblical good man of God when you understand that and you still bear it with humility. I don't have to sit here and tell everybody how unfair my life is. I don't have to sit here and tell you how unfair your life is. And did Jesus do that? Well, this just isn't fair. This just isn't. That's not what men do. Men take the burden and they give it to their God and they shoulder it and they let God lead them. That's what Psalm 37 said. Think about this example. When a child is hurt, who does a child run to normally? A child normally runs to mom, right? When a mom has emotions, when a wife has emotions, when she has questions, when she has things that she wants to get off her chest, in a home, who does she run to? She talks to her husband. Here's my question. The husband's burden that he has to be the bearer, to be the band around the home, is it his responsibility to complain about his problems to his wife? Now, does it not mean that I can't talk? I couldn't talk to my wife. I couldn't talk to, if I had a wife, does that mean that you can't have conversations, that you can't ask her to pray for you, that you can't ask her, what do you think about this? No, those are two different things. So we're not swinging the pendulum. We're not saying that, but here's what I am saying. Is it your responsibility to, every time you have a problem, to dump your problems on your wife and your kids? That's not for her. That's not for those kids. So now, who are you supposed to run to, guys, in a world that you're trying to be a good man and it's unfair? You run to God. And I believe, as we look at the text, and we can go all the way back to Genesis, I believe a man's love has to be different. And I think it has to be the strongest. Why? Remember in Ephesians 5, husbands, notice it starts there first. Husbands, and what does it tell husbands to do? Agape or love your wives. Notice it starts with him first. So then where do I get, if you're a husband or if I'm a man, where do I get my source of how to love my wife? Husbands, agape your wives, even as, so now there's a perfect example. It should mirror that even as Christ loved the church. So then my love, if I'm the leader of the home as men, then what I have to do is I have to be plugged in and my source is God. So now guess who always needs to be in constant communication and prayer? You fellas, it starts with you. You have to be the one. Because how can you transfer the love that you're supposed to have, like Christ had for the church? How can you transfer that to her if you spend no time with your father? That's why I believe your relationship with God in the home must be the strongest, because you cannot love your wife as Christ loved the church if you're not connected to God as Christ was. We cannot be the men that we need to be. It's impossible. It's impossible. Now, for the ladies here, as we're studying this, are you sure that you want to be with a guy like this? Because with a nice guy, you won't have to deal with all this stuff. You won't. I'm just letting you know you won't have to, because a nice guy won't do what a good man will do. So when you say, I want a good Christian guy, I want you to ask this honestly to yourself. Do I really want what's being described as we're talking, or do I just want a nice guy? If you're honest with your answer, and only you know that, you might just have been saying, I just want a nice guy. If you want a good man, what will that good man need? He will need someone to pour into him. So now think about what the Proverbs writer writes in Proverbs 31. We mentioned this in the last podcast. His heart will safely trust in her. So fellas, do you want as you go through all this, do you want to come to the realization like Mordecai is, that things are so unfair even if you try to be a godly man, and then when you come home, then there's another battle you got to fight in the house? I don't want that. I'm just letting you guys know, just personally, I don't want that. I'd rather go home to nobody at my apartment than go home and then it's another war. I don't want that. So if that means I gotta wait till I'm whatever, I'm waiting. I'm waiting, fellas. I'm old. Okay, I'm old. I'm 31. Well, to some people, I'm old. Right? I'm 30. I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing it. Well, Jordan, everybody else that you know is married. I rejoice with them and I love all of them and their kids. But just because they are doesn't mean I have to. Just to look like everybody else. I'm going to wait until peace comes. And if that never comes, then that never comes. But if that means that I will wait, I will wait. I will wait. It's not worth it, because once you come to that realization, you're going to need somebody to pour into you, understanding that life is unfair. And she won't make you bitter evil either. Well, man, all this stuff is think about Job's wife. Now, quickly, when we talk about Job's wife, I don't blame her. These are her kids too. I believe what she's doing, she's crashing her emotions into her husband. So think about what Job is doing. I don't understand. God and I have talked. Job even mentions later on in the book, we would talk in my tent together. My steps were like butter and oil. We would have conversations like a friend to a friend. Why is all this? I don't understand. Why would you do all of this to me? This is not fair. And Job had the perfect mindset that every man that follows God needs to have. He said, we will not speak foolishly like that. He said, will we take the good from God and not take the bad from him too? The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. But either way, whether he gives to me or he takes things away from me, blessed be the name of the Lord. That's the mindset you have to have, guys. That's the scale. The scale is not, well, I did good, so then good should happen. That's a human scale. We have to look at things from God's scale. Whether I give or whether I take away, my name is still blessed. That will always even out the scale. even if you don't understand. Fellas, is that the type of guy? Is that the type of life that you want to live? Guess what? You're going to have to choose to live that. Now, I'm just letting you guys know, even as Christians, you don't have to do that. You can choose to not live that type of life. But if you choose it, fellas, it's not easy. It's not easy. But we have examples in scripture of men that did it. So you have someone to look to. Ladies, is that a guy that you really, really want? You really have to ask yourself that question, because then a good man will need a good one. So that means you have to be something. Everything's not just given to you. Everything's not just, well, I just deserve it, or this is what I want. You see, now you're going to have to do something, ladies. So you're going to have to be different. Is that what you really want? Have you all these years, just be honest. Have you fallen in love with the idea of a good guy, but not prepared yourself to be with one? It's different. It's very, very different. And you see how from Mordecai's lens, from an unfair world, Mordecai's seeing that. Now, here's what I want to mention as well. Remember, we talked about, as we study Mordecai and Esther here, and we see these things pulled out from this text at the end of 2 going into 3. What the Old Testament does, remember, the Old Testament shows us how morally bankrupt the society was. But also what the Old Testament does, it shows us an image of what was to come, or what is to come. And so what Mordecai and Esther is a view of what Jesus and God would be. Now remember, Esther, pure. Esther was taken. Esther was bruised. Esther was taken custody, right? So all these things that are happening to her. And then think about Mordecai. Can Mordecai go in the harem? No. Can Mordecai change what's happening? No. But notice, Mordecai had to watch that. Think about God and Jesus. What did God do? It pleased God to bruise him. God had to watch that. So just a little windows of images that we get of what Jesus and God would be is everywhere throughout Scripture. It's a beautiful, beautiful image. So now we see all these things happening to Haman daily, or to Mordecai daily. He understands all this is happening. Now we continue. Verse 5. So when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay homage to him, Haman was filled with wrath. He disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai. Now, this is why I asked the question. Guys, are you sure you want to be a good man? Because here's the cycle. Here's what happens. You raise your hand. Yeah, I want to be a good man. That's the type of guy I want to be. Ladies, yeah, that's the type of guy I want to be attached to. Yeah, that's him. That's him. And then with all good conscience and all good heart, you do really good things. But when you do really good things, sometimes others see those things and now they're mad at you. So now what happens? So now as you start, it's kind of like Jeremiah. You started it with so much fervor, and then you've seen so much stuff. And then as you serve, you just can't believe the things that can happen. And then now you start to change. I don't think I want to serve like I used to, because I just didn't think all this stuff was possible, man. I couldn't even fathom it. Like this is really real right now. This is real life. I can't believe this is real. So then what happens is, in that moment, you are going to have to decide, will I choose to still be a good man despite all this? Or will all the evidence and all the stuff that has happened, will it persuade me to not be a good man anymore? I want you to think about this example. Go to Exodus chapter what is that? Exodus 5. Yeah. Yeah, go to Exodus chapter 5. And I want you to see Moses from a good man's perspective. Exodus 5. Now, at the beginning of the chapter, obviously Moses gets the call, right? So remember what Moses says, Lord, send somebody else. But then, the Lord reassures him. Moses goes to deliver God's people, right? So that's how it always starts with a good guy. You know what? Okay, I think I can do this. So then you do the work God told you to do. But then notice when things don't go the way that you thought they would go, now you're going to have some decisions to make. Now, he asked Pharaoh, let my people go. Then let's look at verse 3 of Exodus chapter 5. Actually, verse 2. Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I don't know the Lord, nor will I let Israel go. Now you have your first wall. Well, Lord, I did what you said. I was a good man. I did exactly what you wanted me to do. Now there's a part in this journey that's unfair. It's a blockage. That's not fair. But then watch verse 4. Then now it gets worse. So now you're going to have to decide if you want to be a good man, because if you want to be a good man, here's the for lack of a better word, I can't think of a better word right now, but here's the curse. I'm putting up air quotes. Here's the curse of being a good man. Sometimes when you're a good man, your decisions, what it does is it makes life for those around you harder. That's just how it is. So now Moses gets the message from God. Moses comes back. Let my people go. Pharaoh says, I don't know the Lord. And then on top of that, notice what else Pharaoh does. Then the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to work. And Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are many, and you make them rest from their labor so you can leave. So the same day, this is day one. This is day one of Moses doing what God said. Then the same day, verse 6, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, number one, you will no longer give them straw to make brick as before. Let them go and let them gather straw for themselves. Life was already hard. Moses, you're trying to be this good guy. You come into our lives and you make our lives harder. Fellas, you're going to have a decision to make. When you're a good man, that's the natural aura that comes around being with you. That's the natural aura. And sometimes, most times, that natural aura is a repellent because people understand that. Now, you can't blame people. You can't, because that's tough. Is this a life that I really want? Is this who I really want to be attached to? So it's not a sinful choice for someone not to be with someone like Moses or David. Like, that's their choice, and it doesn't make them a bad person. But you must understand, as a good man, that is the aura that comes with being with you. That's just what it is. It's just what it is. So now, as we look at this, notice verse 8. And you will lay hands on them. Now things got way worse. We got to find our own straw. Now you're laying hands on us. You will lay on them the quota of bricks which they made before. You will not reduce it, for they are idle. You will cry out. Therefore they will cry, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Let more work be laid on the men, and that they may labor in it, and they may not regard false works. We're going to make your lives worse because of what this good man decided to do. We're going to make your life way worse because of you. And guys, in those moments, that's when you're going to have to make a choice. Am I insane? Did I do the right thing? And is this worth it? I came here to do good things. I came here to help people. I came here in the future, in the past. I've always wanted to help people, but things always got worse when they were next to me. Do you want that? Will you choose as a good man to keep going? Will you choose that? That's a choice. Man, think about Moses. That's day one on the job. I go back, I say exactly what God said. And they almost double and triple the work, and they make the men work harder. Now, naturally, the people that you're supposed to lead, now what do they think about you? You're the problem, Jordan. You're the problem, Moses. Before you, then that whole conversation happens. Fellas, do you want that? Is that the life that you want? Do you really want to be a good man? Do you really want to be that guy? And 9 times out of 10, if you are that good man, you're going to have to be very, 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 very comfortable being alone. It's unfortunate, but that's the nature of how this goes. It's just the nature of how this goes. Think about David. David's with his men, sees fire and smoke coming from the camp. Women and children are taken. David's wives are taken. Now the men that were once with him now want to stone him. You're going to have to be able to sit by yourself. And the same friends that were with you before, relied on you before, it's not there anymore. So now what are you going to have to do? As a good man, number one, you're going to have to make the choice that even though they're not there, that you still are the right person to them. That's number one. Then number two, you're going to have to learn how to encourage yourself in the Lord. And those are the moments that Satan wants good men in, good families, good women in. He wants them in those moments to get them to turn and say, I hate this. This is too much. I'm done. That's exactly the moment that he wants. Will you let him choose to turn you? Do you really want to be a good man? And ladies, is a good man really what you want? Are you sure? Now, as we keep going, I want you to look at verse 16 of Exodus 5. There's no straw given to your servants. They say, make us brick. Indeed, your servants are beaten, but the fault is in your own people. But he said, you are idle. You are idle. Therefore, you say, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Therefore, verse 18, go to work, for no straw will be given to you. And at the same time, you still are expected to deliver the same amount of bricks. Moses, my life is worse because you came into my life. Dude, y'all want to be good, man? Do you want to be a good guy? Because those are the conversations that you're going to have to deal with. It's just the way it is. Do you want that? And from your perspective, I just was trying to do what God wanted me to. I didn't come here to Egypt to intend to make things worse. I didn't come into your life to intend to make things worse. I didn't come here to intend to make things. I just wanted to do what God said. I didn't come to intend to make. That's not my goal. I didn't walk in here saying, whose life can I mess up today? I didn't come in here to try to make things worse. Now, the good man, now my fight. Now your fight as a good man, now you're going to have to fight with God. God, I don't understand. This is not right. Why are you okay with this? I did what you said. Now everybody's turning on me. How in the world are you going to work in all this? Do you want that life? That's the life of a servant. That's the life of, do you really want that? It's different. Now, 19. And the officers of the children of Israel said that they were in trouble after it was said, you will not reduce any of the bricks. Then as they came out from Pharaoh, from what he said to them, they met Moses And they met Aaron, who stood there to meet them. And they said to Moses and Aaron, verse 21, let the Lord look on you and let the Lord judge you. Because you see, this is your fault, you good man. You try to help us. You try to do this. It's your fault. Because you made us abhorrent in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants to put a sword in their hand and to kill us. All of this is your fault. You sure you want to be a good guy? You sure you want to do that? Verse 22. So Moses returned to the Lord. How do you think Moses returned to God? How do you think Mordecai is talking to God? This isn't, Lord, this is nowhere near. This is nowhere near what I thought. I don't even know anymore. Like I have no answers. None of this makes sense. I don't even know if I should even keep doing what you're saying because things keep getting worse. I just don't know. Ladies, on two fronts. Number one, the same question applies to you. Do you really want to be attached to a man like that? And if you do you understand now why you need to be a different level? I don't even know how to describe. You need to be a different level of an encouragement to him. A whole nother level. A whole nother level. And it's not like he's not going to dump those things, but again, it's a different level of encouragement. You're going to need a different mindset. How do you think Zipporah is talking to Moses? How do you think Abigail, well, we saw it, how Abigail talked to David, all these other examples. It's different. It's a servant's mindset is always different. It's always different. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, Lord, why have you brought trouble on these people? They were supposed to be released. Why have you brought trouble? And notice, now watch, now he questions being a good man again. Why is it that you sent me? I could have just stayed out there in Midian. I could have been completely comfortable out there. That's the nice guy syndrome. I could have just been out there I just could have been there. Why did you pick me? Then here's the last phase of being a good guy. All this stuff goes down. And then you ask the question one more time. Lord, why did you pick me to go and say this and be here and do that? And why me? Now, from that moment, will you choose to be a good man? Or will everything that's happened make your heart hard, just like Pharaoh's was? Verse 23. For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, all he has done is evil to this people. Things have gotten worse. And neither have you delivered your people at all. Things have gotten worse because I did what you said. That's the dichotomy of being a good man. Lord, I just said what you said, and I'm hated even more than I was before. Do you want to be that guy? Fellas, you're going to have to ask yourself those questions. And now back in Esther, Mordecai is literally living this. What Haman wanted to do, Haman just wanted to punish Mordecai. But because of Mordecai and who he was as a Jew, he said, you know what? I'm really going to hurt you. I want to kill all of you. I just made the whole situation worse. Why was I even here? Why did I even say anything? I shouldn't have even been there, because this wouldn't have happened. Then this wouldn't have happened. Then this wouldn't have happened. The Jews would still be alive. Esther would still, why did I even do anything? You see the struggle of being a good man And what happens when your steps are really ordered by God? It's different. It's different. Verse 7. So the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year, the king of Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman to determine the day and the month, and it fell on the 12th month, which is the month Adar. Then Haman said to the king of Ahasuerus, there's a certain people. Notice how he brings it up. King, I'm not going to say Jews, but I think I know who you're talking about. There's a certain people scattered and dispersed in the provinces of your kingdom. Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. There's a lot of people scattered in this kingdom. Remember, we saw that in verse 1, from India to Ethiopia. So there's a lot of different people scattered here in Susa. Their laws are so different from all the other peoples, and they don't keep the king's laws. Therefore, it's not fitting for the king to let those people remain. If it pleases the king, right? You see how he twisted that? Haman really wanted this for himself, but he's saying, well, if it pleases the king. So look how unfair things are getting. Let a decree be written that all of them be destroyed. I will pay 10,000 talents of silver. Again, you notice those talents of silver is always a sign of betrayal, right? Judas, Jesus, silver here. It's the same image. Into the hands of those who do the work to bring it into the king's treasury. So the king took his signet ring from his hand, and he gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agathite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the money and the people are given to you to do what it seems good to you. So how am I thinking about this if I'm a good man like Mordecai? Everything that's went down because of what I chose not to do, all of this is my fault. You know what a good man will do? Sometimes you'll look at things and you'll say what God wants you to say, and sometimes you will have internal conversations. All this wouldn't have happened if I just wouldn't have said it. If I if I wouldn't have been there, none of this would have happened. If I wouldn't have said anything, none of this would have happened. If I never preached this, none of this would have happened. None of this would have happened. Is all this worth it? Is all of this stuff worth it? It's a tough question. Again, we're going to ask the question again. Are you sure you want to be a good man? Are you sure? Verse 12. The king's scribes were called on the 13th day of the 4th month, and a decree was written according to all that Haman commanded, to the king's satraps, to the governors, to the officials, to every province, to every people in the language. In the name of the king Ahasuerus, it was written and sealed with the king's ring. Again, when something is sealed with the signet ring, that is law, right? So Haman gave the ring over to Haman. So now when Haman put that signet ring down, that meant that this was law now. Okay, so that's important. The letters were sent by couriers. So look at the mass. I mean, look at just how everything's just blowing up. So now the letters that was sent because of what Mordecai, a good man, decided to do, letters were sent to couriers everywhere. There were 127 provinces. All 127 was going to hear about it. They wanted to kill, to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day. On the 13th day, on the 12th month, which is of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. A copy of the document was to be issued as law in every province, being published for all the people that they should be ready for that day. The couriers went out, and they hastened at the king's command, and the decree was proclaimed in Shushan the citadel. So the king and the Haman sat down to drink, and the city of Shushan was perplexed. All because of what a good man decided to do. Now all this evil. So now from Esther's position, she has no power and no control. From Haman's position, no power, no control. And because of what I decided to do, everything literally gets worse. Now, in moments like this, to be a good man, to be a good woman, and when you do things and everything blows up in your face, you will come to the question that Mordecai is asking and that Moses asked. Is this worth it? why in the world would you send me, knowing good and well that no matter what I said, how I said it, when I said it, this was the end goal for everything to blow. This is not, I can't serve. I don't want to be a servant of God. So what I'll do, I will not speak in his name anymore, just like Jeremiah said. What I'll do, I can't do this. The Lord has tricked me. So instead of just throwing away my faith, I won't be a good guy anymore. I'm just going to be a nice one. I'll show up to worship. I'll lead a prayer every once in a while. I'll just be here. But that good guy stuff, the good man stuff, that's not for me. That's not for me. Do you understand why there's a difference between nice and a good man? Now, I want to close with this thought. Go back to Psalm chapter 37. If you go back to Psalm chapter 37 and you look at verse 23, this was insane. When you look in the Hebrew, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. The word or the phrase good man, this is so insane. Guess what that means? It denotes the term, watch this. It denotes the term of a strong man, a conqueror, and watch the last definition. This is insane. A hero. A hero. You see, guys, we fall in love with the idea of being a hero, right? I'm a Superman guy, right? I love superheroes, right? You see, in my office, I got superhero stuff, right? We've all fallen in love with being the hero. But I think just as sometimes some of the ladies can fall in love with the idea of being a good, or fall in love with the idea of being with a good man, guys, what we can do, we can fall in love with the idea of being a hero. But then the stuff that Moses went through, Mordecai's going through, Jesus went through, we don't want that guy. But those men who will sacrifice and who will choose to do things, and even if it comes down to it, where they choose your happiness they give your happiness over theirs, if they're willing to do that, that is how to be a hero in the eyes of God. Now, fellas, is that the type of guy that you want to be? How the Lord describes a hero? Ladies, is that the type of guy that you want in your life? How God describes what a true hero is. A hero is a good man with his steps that are ordered by the Lord. Though he fall, he will not be utterly cast down. Why? Because when things are just blowing up, there's no answer. Why did you send me here? You've forsaken me. There's no plan. I'm not being led anywhere. Nothing's happening. The Lord upholds him with his hand. Fellas, don't you want to be that hero? And ladies, if a good man is what you want, if the Lord upholds him, don't you want to be attached to that? Esther part 4. You see why we wanted to really focus on Mordecai? There's so much stuff in it. Now our eyes, as we travel next week, our eyes are going to go right back to Esther in 4. Okay, so we're going to kind of hop between visions here. So again, I can't wait to go through that with you. Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to let this sit and marinate. I won't record on Monday because I'm going to be at camp and there's going to be a lot going on. So I'll be back in like 2 weeks. So I'll actually put out something else on Monday. It'll be a promo for a book here that a brother wrote on a couple years ago. So it actually goes perfect with Esther. So what we'll do, I'll upload that so you can see that for camp week, and then the week after, then we'll start with 4. Okay, so we'll do that next week. So again, reach out. We want you guys to be a part of this study. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And Lord willing, we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks, guys.